to you by...
We have seen it all over many years in the horror genre. Killer pets, killer furniture, haunted houses, hotels, and even dolls. Writers have taken many ideas to extreme places, but I can't say that I have seen many movies with haunted killer in-ground pools. Have you? Hello friends, and welcome back to ETF. Not every horror film sets out to claim its spot among the greats. Films like The Shining, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, and others are the benchmarks of the genre, while lesser-known films are pumped out every day and fade beneath the waters just as quickly. Night Swim is a 2024 horror film produced by Blumhouse, a studio that has become known for its prolific output of horror films that often deliver strong returns on modest budgets. However, let's not forget that it hasn't always hit home runs. This film is directed by Bryce McGuire, who co-wrote the screenplay with Rod Blackhurst. The movie is based on a 2014 short film of the same name, also created by these two writers, which had garnered attention for its tense atmosphere and effective use of a very similar concept. Blumhouse's decision to expand the short film into a full-length feature was driven by the studio's interest in high-concept horror films that can be produced on relatively low budgets, while still offering strong box office potential. The film was shot on a modest budget, typical of Blumhouse's approach, which emphasizes creativity and efficient storytelling over expensive special effects, or star-studded casts. The film's production involved both practical effects and CGI, particularly in creating the supernatural elements of the story. The underwater sequences were a key focus during production, with efforts made to make these scenes visually striking and disorienting for the audience. However, the execution of these scenes has been a point of criticism, as the final product reportedly suffered from poor lighting and less than stellar effects, which distract from the intended impact. Blumhouse marketed the film with a typical emphasis on its high-concept premise and the studio's track record in horror, aiming to attract fans of the genre with the promise of a new original scare. However, despite these efforts, Night Swim was faced with mixed and negative reviews, with many critics pointing to its lack of suspense and over-reliance on cliches as significant flaws. As I sort of already said, Blumhouse has been a reliable name in the horror genre, producing some of the most memorable scares in recent years, alongside some of the most forgettable. Night Swim is what I would probably consider to be one of those that we might watch once, but ultimately leave forgotten to time. With this one, Blumhouse delivered a film that barely manages to tread water. What promises to be a tension-filled nightmare turns out to be a formulaic, uninspired mess that leaves audiences gasping for something more substantial. The premise, a haunted swimming pool, is undeniably intriguing, mostly because you go into it wondering how the hell these filmmakers are going to try and make something terrifying out of a concept that is, for the most part, silly. I will admit, the potential of atmospheric tension is high, as with any water-based film setting, but the execution falls flat. Night Swim drowns in cliches and predictable jump scares that have been done to fucking death in countless other films, especially in recent memory. The script sort of feels like a patchwork of tired tropes, rather than a cohesive narrative. The dialogue is wooden, characters are paper thin, and the attempts at building suspense are ultimately undermined by a plotting pace and complete lack of originality. Wyatt Russell, as the film's lead, is a commendable performer. He tries his best to breathe life into this role, but even his efforts can't salvage this vessel. His character is frustratingly one-dimensional, and the script gives him little to work with, beyond the usual array of shocked expressions and frenetic attempts to escape the inevitable. The supporting cast is equally forgettable, with none of them making a lasting impression or adding depth to the story. However, none of this is going to keep me from attempting to dive a little bit deeper. Visually, the film does look great for the most part. It's lensed well, colored well, and outside of some not-so-solid CGI elements here and there, its effects do hold up. These elements are also aided by some strong sound design and a decent score. On top of this, no film goes without themes and psychological underpinnings, whether intentional or not. The pool in the film can be seen as a metaphor for the unconscious mind, a deep hidden place where repressed fears, memories, and desires reside. Water often symbolizes the unconscious in psychoanalysis, and a haunted pool sort of suggests that something buried within the character's psyches is trying to resurface. The supernatural elements of the film could represent these repressed emotions or unresolved traumas that have been contained but not dealt with. As the haunting intensifies, it forces the characters to confront these buried aspects of themselves, leading to a psychological unraveling. Psychologically, fear often stems from the unknown, things we cannot see, understand, or control. The idea of a haunted pool taps into this fear by transforming a familiar, seemingly safe place into something menacing and unpredictable. This shift from safety to danger mirrors how the mind can distort reality, turning everyday objects or places into sources of anxiety when influenced by stress, trauma, or mental illness. The character's fear of the pool may reflect deeper anxieties about losing control, facing the unknown, or confronting hidden aspects of their own personalities. Trauma often manifests in the mind as a persistent, unresolved issue that haunts the individual, much like the pool haunts the characters in this film. If the pool is the site of past tragedy, such as drowning or a violent incident, it could symbolize the way trauma lingers in the subconscious, resurfacing when least expected. The characters' interactions with the pool could represent their attempts to either repress or confront these traumatic memories. The haunting serves as a metaphor for the idea that trauma cannot be ignored or buried. It must be faced and dealt with, or it will continue to exert destructive influence. Water is often associated with a loss of control, as it is a fluid, unpredictable element that can easily overwhelm. Psychologically, the haunted pool could represent the character's fear of losing control over their lives or minds. The pool becomes a symbol of their vulnerability to forces beyond their control, whether those forces are external, such as supernatural hauntings, or internal, like their own psychological struggles. The film might explore how the characters attempt to regain control, or how they cope with the realization that some things cannot be controlled or understood. In psychology, projection is a defense mechanism, where individuals attribute their own unpredictable thoughts or feelings onto something or someone else. In this film, the haunting could be seen as a projection of the character's inner fears. The pool, a seemingly innocuous object, becomes a vessel for these projections, manifesting as a supernatural force. The characters might be projecting their unresolved issues onto the pool, externalizing their inner turmoil in the form of a supernatural occurrence. The more they project their fears onto the pool, the more powerful and threatening the supernatural elements become. This setting of a private pool, often associated with solitude and privacy, can also reflect feelings of isolation and alienation. The characters in Night Swim may be isolated from others, physically and emotionally, which exacerbates their psychological distress. The haunting could symbolize the effect of this isolation, how being cut off from support systems and social connections can lead to a breakdown in mental health. The pool, once a place of social gathering and relaxation, becomes a site of loneliness and terror, reflecting the character's inner sense of alienation. As the haunting escalates, the film could depict the character's gradual descent into madness. The psychological pressure of dealing with an incomprehensible and terrifying force could cause them to lose touch with reality. The descent might be shown through increasing erratic behavior, hallucinations, or paranoia, illustrating how extreme stress or fear can lead to mental breakdowns. The pool, as a source of the haunting, becomes a symbol of the mind's fragility, and the thin line between sanity and insanity. I know, I'm going to extremes with this one. I think the biggest disappointment here lies in the film's horror elements. We rely heavily on your basic jump scares, and cheap, effective ones at that. There's no sense of dread, no lingering fear. Instead, we're treated to a series of predictable boo moments that feel more obligatory than earned. The potential for psychological horror, giving the twist on a modern setting, is ultimately squandered in favor for the lowest common denominator. The film lacks the subtlety and nuance that can make horror truly terrifying. Instead, it opts for loud noises and sudden appearances that may startle but never truly scare. I may have said that visually the film looks good, but that doesn't make it great by any means. While the underwater scenes had the potential to be eerie and disorienting, they are marred by poor lighting and uninspired cinematography. The special effects are serviceable, but far from impressive, further underlying the overall lack of effort put into the production. In the end, Night Swim is a missed opportunity. It's a film that had the potential to explore the fear of the unknown and the dangers lurking beneath the surface, but it fails on almost every level. Blumhouse has delivered far better horror experiences in the past, but this one just sinks to the bottom of the deep end, weighed down by its lack of creativity and genuine scares. If you're looking for a horror movie that will keep you up at night, Night Swim isn't it. Not to mention, it's basically a carbon copy of much better and more well-established films like Poltergeist or the Amityville Horror. Well, friends, that's going to be all for now. As always, I implore you to check out this film for yourself. Take my opinions for what they're worth, but please formulate your own. I've placed a link down in the description on where you can get a copy of this one for your collection. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe for more content, and if you really want to help support the channel, find us over on Patreon. Every little bit helps this channel grow and gets us closer to that goal of being able to make these videos for you full time. Until next time, stay safe, maybe just stay out of the fucking pool, and thanks for watching.